Hi everyone and welcome back to Chef Seats. Today we're going to be making Mapo Tofu, one of my favorite Chinese dishes. Now, Mapo Tofu is traditionally served with ground pork, but you know how to Americanize it and add this big old pork chop. And just like always, only thing we're going to need are a few simple ingredients. So, let's get started. Now, the first step I'd like to do is preparing our aromatics to make our Mapo Tofu. Right here we're just going to be slicing some ginger, which has already been peeled, and lining it lengthwise and slicing it. This is going to be called julienning. Now, if you can see in the background all the ingredients that we're using, you could pick all these up at your local grocery store most likely. There we are, just like that. Now let's move into our shallot. Simply cut it in half and julienne it a little bit more. And just like always, making sure we keep our fingers back, nice and safe. There we are. Nice cutting, everybody. After this shallot, let's move into a scallion. First we need to cut this bottom off. There, we don't need this root at all. So just simply chop it off. Slice this lengthways, and we are only going to be using the bottom of this right here, the whites. These are going to be really nice and sweet, and then we can reserve the tops for the garnish if we want to slice those on a hard bias. It'll probably look very nice at the end. You know, that's a good idea. We'll do that. Just set this aside. Now we're going to make our slurry. So what we're going to do is have 1 part cornstarch and 2 part water. And just as easy as this, mix it up. This is going to be our thickening agent for our Mapo Tofu sauce. It really doesn't get much easier than that. Just simply done. Now in a pan under medium heat, let's add the ginger, shallots, and scallions into the pan. Now we're just going to do a nice gentle saute. We want the insides to still be a little bit raw when we start making the sauce because we want the flavors to infuse into it as we reduce the chicken stock. Now let's just keep mixing, preventing any color on it. You see the vegetables are still holding their shape, our aromatics. And now at this point, we could go ahead and add our black bean garlic sauce, followed by our chili garlic sauce. And we just need to give this a good little mix for a moment. Let everything get evenly incorporated. There you go. All this spice is starting to come up. I really wish that you could smell this right now. Lovely, lovely aroma. And now we could add our chicken stock. This is homemade chicken stock. I have a video on here if you want to check out how to make it. And simply give it another mix. Let all the flavor on the bottom of the pan come up as well. And we're going to bring this up to a boil, and we're going to reduce this sauce by half. All this ginger, shallots, and scallion flavor is just going to really infuse very well. Now we can add our tofu. Now this is a medium tofu, so we need to be gentle when we're mixing it. Let's just give it a gentle stir. Don't be too aggressive with it. You don't want it to fall apart. Nice and gentle. And when this sauce comes back up to heat, let's add some of our slurry to it. I only add half at a time, just to actually see the thickness of what it brings. Once again, simply mixing it. And now we can just go ahead and add the second half. Looks like it's going to take it all. And gently mix it again. Now you're not going to know the full thickness of the slurry until you bring it up to a boil. So make sure we bring it up to a boil and see the actual thickness. If it gets too thick, add a little bit more chicken stock. If it's a little thin, just go ahead and add a little bit more slurry to it. Totally fine. You already know the recipe. There we are. Now let's just bring this up to a boil. Add a little bit of sesame oil. It's going to give it a really nice nutty flavor. And there we have it. Look at that beautiful Mapo Tofu. Now that we have this ready, let's start sauteing our pork chop. First we're going to need to season it. A little bit of salt on one side, followed with some fresh cracked black pepper. Let's flip it over. And now we're just going to repeat the seasoning steps once again with the salt, followed by the pepper. And now in a pretty hot pan, we just need to check the heat of the pan. You see that? It's ripping hot. Now we can add our pork chop in. Make sure you put the pork chop away from you so the oil does not splatter on you. And shoving it in a corner, what I'm going to start doing is basting our pork chop. So quite simply, check this out. I'm going to baste it. So I'm scooping all that hot oil into my big spoon and just basting it. This is going to help the cooking process and the coloring process of the pork chop speed up very quickly. It's a nifty little trick, but you have to be very careful while doing so at the house. So now that we have this side, let's see how much color we have on it. So a little bit more basting here, and let's see what we got. Wow, look at that nice golden brown. So you see the work that it does. So let's just keep basting the bottom side. Follow with that, basting a little bit more. See how I like to keep my oil on top of where the flame is on the pan? This is going to keep the oil staying hot. There we go, look at this nice golden color. Let's just pop it in the oven now. Rest it up on its bone and toss it on in. Now this oven is at 475 degrees, and this large pork chop took me about 8 minutes to cook, but it's going to vary. Every oven is a little bit different. So one nifty trick I like to do is my cake tester trick. I'll show you how to do it right here. Now I'm just going to pull the pork chop out of the oven, and I need to feel the temperature of the inside of the pork chop. So the way that I'm going to do it is shoving this stick all the way inside. It's going to absorb the temperature of it, and I'm just simply going to place it on a sensitive, gentle part of my skin. I'm going to feel that it's warm, so now it's done. Now let's start plating this Mapo Tofu dish up. Just start spooning this up a little bit here, a little bit there. Let's make sure we allow that pork chop to rest about half the cooking time while we're doing this as well. Oh, look, it's so yummy. Just shove that right on in there, and it might lean to the side a little bit, but that's totally fine. Nice. Pork chop instead of ground pork. I like where we're going with this. And now let's just sprinkle some of those scallions we were talking about all over it. I can use my little tweezers to make sure that it's all nice and evenly distributed. Nice and even. Let's actually get it off the pork chop. We worked so hard in getting that beautiful color. There we go. Well folks, there we have it. Mapo tofu done with a big old pork chop instead of ground pork. Well, hope you love it, hope you like it, hope you really enjoy this recipe that we have here as following, and I'm really excited to hear all the feedback that I get. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe.